back to the Film Fund podcast. I'm your host, founder, and executive producer at the Film Fund, Thomas Verdi. I'm also an award-winning filmmaker, producer, and film festival judge. Started the Film Fund to give filmmakers an easier, alternative way to get their films funded. Instead of working on a screenplay, crowdfunding campaign, or grant application, you write one sentence pitching your film for a chance to receive up to $10,000 and other prizes to make it. Our summer 2022 narrative and documentary funding contests are closed, so thank you everyone for entering. And we just wrapped up the judging period and announced the winners yesterday if you saw our email newsletter. So be sure to check us out at filmfund.co. We want to remind listeners that contests happen regularly. So if you are listening at a later date, check out that website, thefilmfund.co, for the most up-to-date information. Today we have Isaac Wellish on the show. Isaac is founder and CEO of Solcosm, which is a sustainable point-and-shoot camera company. He's also one of the first clients of FF Branded, which, if you listen to the podcast or follow our newsletter, you know is the Film Fund's sister agency. We do branded content for other companies using awesome members of the Film Fund community to head up that production. So I'm super excited to have Isaac on the show to talk about his experiences with FF Branded, showing off a camera there. Isaac also was in my grad program. That's how I met him at Lehigh University. We were both working on, I was working on the Film Fund. He was working on, I don't know. So super excited to have him on the show. Isaac, thanks so much for coming. Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction, Tom. Thank you for having me. And I just want to say, my life is a little bit in flux right now. I'm actually leaving the country in a couple of days, so I'm moving out of my place here in Brooklyn.
Isaac's
So
timing.
that's why I have all this stuff going on in the background. So
I
it's
feel
all
it.
part of the plan, right? Right?
Yes, absolutely.
We planned
You're always
this,
doing
yeah.
something.
So my name is Isaac. I grew up in Las Vegas. I have two sisters. And for the past 4 years, I was working in science, technology, engineering, math, sort of STEM education, the STEM education field, manufacturing electronics, and I was working within the quality side of things, making sure that all the products worked before they got shipped out to customers. And actually, just completed I completed the full time version of that job on Friday, which is so wild. And I'm going to be coming back in the winter as a contractor, but I'm about to go to Vietnam and Thailand for 2 months. Yeah, so that's part of why things are all in being reorganized right now. And yeah, I'm super stoked for that. I love traveling, and I'm really just excited to get more into that and be able to live a bit more of a free lifestyle. And part of that too is several different companies that I've started and worked on. One was in college with Tom, and then more recently I've been working on Solcosm. And Solcosm is it's a resource for burgeoning film photographers, people who maybe use disposable cameras or the like the Fujifilm cameras or the Polaroids, and they kind of want to take their film photography skills to the next level, but they don't exactly know where to get started. So Solcosm provides cameras and resources for people that just want to shoot film. They really want to they want to get away from their phone. They want to get away from technology, and they want to like go on a trip. They want to go out in nature, go take a camera shooting, and so a lot of people just love the ability that this camera gives them to go out and just explore without being attached and tied to their phone. And I want to talk more about that because there's something exciting that's happened recently. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. And just like a fun fact, I love doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've been doing it for about 9 months now, and
Oh, cool.
it's not something I've never was very physical growing up. I played like tennis and volleyball, and it's been really fun to just get like physical with my body and just learn new ways of being with my body and other people's bodies, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So that's a little bit about me.
Love that. And what I think sets you apart, Solcosm, I mean, um, is the storytelling aspect of it. You're not just selling, point and shoot cameras. You're selling this kind of lifestyle along with it. You're selling the education of what goes into film photography and how it's not just, or how it shouldn't be this kind of disposable act, and how it's more, put more thought into it, and how you are separating from technology and getting out into nature. And that's something we integrated in the film we made, Analog, which was one of our first projects for FF branded. The production value wasn't as high as it is now with some of our more recent projects, but it was one of our first videos we made for a company, and I think it came out super well, and I loved telling that story. Um, could you tell us a little bit about what your experience as an FF branded client was like? I
Totally.
know I shot that one myself um, with DSLR and like a DJI or
Yeah.
a stabilizer.
As someone that has very little experience in the film world, my sister is she works on movie sets and TV backgrounds, so I knew a little bit about some of the stuff that goes on, but I really didn't know much. And honestly, it was just fun. I had so much fun being a part of it. Like we went in the dead of winter. It was January of this year, and it was we had all this equipment. I had no idea how anything worked, and I was just trying to practice my script that we had made together.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just cool. I've never done anything like that. To be able to tell my story, and it was a little bit uncomfortable too. I'm not used to being on camera. I'm not used to like talking about myself so much. And everyone that was there was just so supportive and fun to be around. And like it was just so playful. It was just like we were creating this thing, and it was a total creation. Like that was a collaboration between both of us. And you really heard me and listened to what I wanted to create, and that was I think my favorite part about it. Like I can vividly remember filming it and just how cold it was that day, and we had bought you had bought what is it Dunkin' Donuts for everybody, like some sandwiches for everybody at the beginning, and we're like freezing outside, like trying to eat these like warm sandwiches and getting ready to film for the day, and it was a beautiful day. It was cold, but it was beautiful, and it was just I had so much fun. I think that was my biggest takeaway from it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, we definitely want to make it. Being on set, a lot of, it can be intense sometimes if you have a big budget or like a really important shot you need to get, or just depending on what the nature, no pun intended, of the project is. But it's also fun at the end of the day, whether it's branded or narrative or documentary. Like you're making a movie. So like I never try to forget that. Like there's always you're doing something creative, and whether it's product photography or you know product shots or a founder interview, or even corporate stuff, like you're still creating something on camera, and I think that experience is just super unique, and it was super exciting, and it was awesome to have you as part of the film too, because not the videos we make, the founders aren't always part of that process depending
Mm-hmm.
on what they want. So
Mm-hmm.
it's cool to have you on set, and I think it was really integral for your project because you are telling that story as the founder.
And I
And
remember, and not to cut you off, but I remember
that's fine.
the first time around when we tried to do this, we had a script that had a different main character, different
Mm.
actor that was sort of playing. It was a completely different script that we had created,
Are you talking
and that
about
was
the
still
previous company for the sound one?
no. This is also. Oh yeah, this was for my other company, for
Mm.
the hearing device company, and it was I was really excited about that one too, but I felt more removed from it. Like, they were supposed to shoot one day, and I had no idea what was really happening. I wasn't really a
Mm-hmm.
part of it. Like, I helped out with the script and talked with the actors a little bit, and that kind of thing, and the guy who wrote the script. But I felt very removed from it, and so I wasn't as connected to it. Whereas this was like
Mm.
I was involved with it, and I actually got to see it happen. That made a really big difference,
Hmm.
and I think it also made me want to be more involved and really get as much out of it as I could. And it just I think it brought it to a whole other level.
Yeah, and that's definitely that you were really the test project a few years ago
Mm-hmm.
with that other company. God, I'm blanking on the name of that company. Um, the
Coclair.
here Coclair, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, that was like our first experience, and something I got great feedback from you on was how involved the clients want to be. So that's why we make the clients so much more involved now. We're sending them the script, we're having calls with them. It's definitely a collaborative process. So thank you for that feedback. It's definitely something we took and implemented now going forward.
Totally, and it's
Because
something that's so personal as like my own story and like why I
mm,
created this. I think having that be the focus of the film made it so much more personal, and wanting to get it right.
yeah, no, totally. and it was a blast having you on set as well. We got to have a little rap party after, which was fun. Even though it was just me and Isaac in Fishtown going out. I don't know. I think Kyle was there too, one of the crew members.
Yeah, Kyle
And
came.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it was fun. Definitely a small crew. I think it was
the
me.
whole South Philly came.
Yeah. Me, makeup artist, and we had like a grip on set. It was a fun time. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the product development process. That was a big basis of the grad program Isaac and I went through, product development. And obviously you've done that. I've done that more from a software um, point of view and community building, marketing. But yours is definitely has always been more hardware focused.
Hmm.
And I just want to ask you how you think that product development process, creating something, is similar to the filmmaking process, the independent producing process, from what you know about it.
So, how is the product development process similar to the film making process?
Yeah.
Interesting. I hadn't compared the two before. Well, I guess um, maybe what's helpful is I can talk a little bit about the process, the product development process I had for Solcosm, and then
Mm-hmm.
maybe you could, because I don't know so much about the film development process,
Sure.
although I did learn some. So then maybe we could go from there and see
Yeah.
how they're similar. So for me, really, the genesis of this company was this camera, and I became what's the word, obsessed with point and shoot cameras maybe 2 years ago, the first summer of the pandemic. And I was just like, once to give a little background, I used disposable cameras for a good amount of time. And I brought them on some trips, and it was so great to be able to get away from my phone and take some pictures and then get them developed. And then the quality of the pictures were so cool to me. And a friend of mine showed me about point and shoot cameras, that there are these cameras that are just as simple as disposable cameras. They work the same way. They have all the same features, but they're reusable, and they're a little bit nicer. I mean, they're much nicer. But there's something that you keep and you own. And as long as you can learn how to, load the film in, which is just something you have to learn. It's a skill, but it's not so difficult like anything else. Once you can learn how to load the film into the camera, that's basically it. And then you have a reusable camera. You don't have to keep buying disposables. I thought that was so cool. And I was like, why don't more people have these? And I just was so confused. Like, why don't more people have these cameras? And as I did research, I found is just they either didn't exist. No one was making no one was making new point and shoots anymore. Or B, the ones that did exist were vintage, and so you'd have to go on Etsy or go to an old camera shop and
Mm-hmm.
buy them, and you sort of have to know what you're looking for. You don't really know the price point. You don't know if you're going to get something that has some broken gears, or the canister is broken, or the spindle is messed up. Like, it's all mechanical stuff. So I just became obsessed. I was like, there has got to be a way to give people access to new point and shoot cameras, because as great as vintage film cameras are, they're not perfect, and there's no manual for all of them. And so I just went on this quest to find a point and shoot camera that just did everything that I wanted to do. And luckily, because I work in manufacturing and electronics, at least I did, I knew where to go for different suppliers, and I reached out to several suppliers, and I found several ones that made different versions of this model of a point and shoot camera. So I ordered some samples, and I just tested them out, and I loved them. And some worked better than others, and I found the version that I liked most, which was this one. This is the first model that I found that I really liked, and it just did everything that I thought a point and shoot camera should do for a beginner. And so, it wasn't like I developed this. It's not like I invented this product and then created it. It was that I saw a need, and I knew, and that I was the person that had this need. And I was like, I knew a lot of people that would really get a lot of value out of having access to something like this. And really all it was an experiment. And if I gave more people access to this experience, and I package it in such a way that it's not just a camera, it's an experience. And I can show you some of the packaging a little bit too, because it's one of my favorite parts, although maybe I want to keep it just for my customers because it is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it really is an experience when you get one of our kits, you open it up, and there's this whole experience waiting for you that's all surrounding you going on an adventure and you doing something, going out of your typical, normal just A to B lifestyle, A to B, like I do this and then do this and then do this. We're an interjection to that where it's like, okay, you receive our kit. You get a command prompt where you are directed to go on an adventure and take some photos.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really it's not just a camera, it's an experience, and we are an interjection to your life to actually go out and do something that you wouldn't have normally done today.
Mm-hmm.
So how this all relates to the product development process is, yes, I didn't develop this product, but I did develop the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is what is at the core of the company is this experience of going out and enjoying yourself, going outside of your normal routine and just observing the world. And so how this all relates to film, I don't know. Maybe you can step in and you're hearing
No,
something that I'm not
you
hearing.
did 100% hear something
Yeah.
that you're not, and I think the key word you used is experiment. You're
Mm.
you're encouraging people to experiment, and with independent filmmaking, at least short form independent filmmaking, shorts, it's all about experimentation. It's all about pushing the boundaries and learning and just getting your skills out there and developing them. No pun intended. Um, I think I said no pun intended twice today. I don't know if it was on this recording or the last one. Anyway, it's all about experimentation. It's all about finding out what works and what doesn't work in terms of a story, and you're developing a skill set. Just like you said, you have to learn that skill, how to load the film for your point and shoot camera. You have to learn how to make a film, a motion picture film, um, and so that process of going through it and just creating something
Yeah.
is really what I see as the parallel. Just experimenting and creating something with shorts. Like everyone starts with short films for the most part. No one knows what to do. Even in film school, I didn't go to film school, but um, you show up as a freshman. Maybe you took some video courses in high school or something like that, some film production courses if you went to a big enough school where they offered that. But by and large, you've never made a film before, really. So you don't know what you're doing, and it's like, okay, now I'm gonna get on a film set. I'm gonna experiment. I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna pick up a camera. Maybe I'll try cinematography. Maybe I'll find out I like editing better. It's just about finding what works for you. And I think that part of your process, I've seen you working on this company now, and you're just trying different things. You're trying different product models. You're trying different marketing efforts. You're creating a story. And I like I said before, I think what separates you is developing the experience. You're not just selling a camera. You're selling the experience. You're creating that creativity framework. You're literally giving them a script. I didn't even know about the adventure thing. That's so awesome. Like we need to market that more. Like you're getting a challenge, like go out and shoot something. That's so cool. That's what a script is. It's like here's a blueprint. Now go out and shoot something. And so I think there are a ton of parallels there. I think you did an awesome job of really
Yeah.
showing those parallels without even realizing
Totally.
it.
And something else that I'm hearing out of what you said is, when I and in the entrepreneurial journey as well is all an experiment, and that's what is so exciting to me about entrepreneurship is it all starts with like an inkling of this idea of like a seed of a feeling like could this work,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really what this company was just like could I actually bring this experience into the hands of people who wouldn't typically have this experience. That's what the genesis was, and the sort of the hypothesis. And it was a total experiment. It was like I didn't know how to reach. I mean, I had been working in manufacturing, but I wasn't the person to be reaching out to these suppliers. So I was like, who am I to reach out to these suppliers halfway across the world and like ask about inquire about these cameras? Like that was terrifying to me at the time, which is now is like I don't think anything about it, but it was a total experiment. It was like, can I do this? Is like, is this okay? And I just went ahead and did it, and then I started with samples. I just ordered several camera samples, which is something that the CEO of my company that I had been working for the past several years does all the time. She would just order samples before we order a large quantity from a supplier.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took those samples and I took some photos with them and I showed them to friends. I started small and it was an experiment. And from there, it just kept tweaking things, and then I ordered more, and then I took pictures, and yeah, it was a total experiment. And I think in relation to filmmaking, I don't know so much about it, but it sounds like to me, use a script, or a concept for a short film. You start with this kind of seedling of an idea that really excites you, and really just like gets you excited. And that's exactly how I felt about this when I was first creating. I was
Mm-hmm.
every single day I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was obsessed with it. And I think there might be a parallel with film, is like you have this seedling of an idea where it's like you have this vision for something, and you want nothing more than to bring it into reality. And then once you start doing that, you see what works and what doesn't work. You start tweaking it, you get feedback, and you see this creation come to life. And then all of a sudden it's real, and like people are emailing me. I have customers that are emailing me different things about the cameras, and it's like, wow, real people actually have these cameras, are enjoying them, are using them. And I never saw that as like, that's never happened for me. I've never had real customers before, and it's magical, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, connecting
Yeah.
with an audience, which is what you're doing, is it's something special. Whether they're critiquing you, I don't know how special that is, but just it's just interacting with people who have been impacted by something you've created is definitely a unique feeling. And I think whether that's a company or a product or a film or all of the above, it's definitely something that I think is unique and interesting, and it's special, and it's why we create things. So I think that's so cool you've been able to experience that, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it takes you, and where you're going with this company. Um,
Totally. Can I
speak.
ask you a question on that topic? And I
Yeah,
know you
totally.
have questions for me, but on that topic,
Thanks.
something that I'm curious about with filmmaking, and I think one of the differences between filmmaking and product development is, as a filmmaker, you have a certain vision where, yes, you do want to listen to the feedback, but at the same time, you are creating something that is from your, it's not, whereas a product fills a need. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I guess a film fills a need as well, but it's more of a creative pursuit. And
Mm-hmm.
so, how do you draw the line between like getting feedback from people? And maybe you can talk about this with your film, The Toms, that you created. But how do you draw the line between like getting feedback from people, and then being like, well, no, this is my vision, and this is how I see things are going to go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely. And it really depends on, I guess, at what stage you're getting that feedback on the project. If the film's done and it's released, like the feedback's going to be okay. Well, maybe I'll take that in consideration for my next film. Because once the film's released, it's like once you release a product, it's like,
Yeah.
all right, well, we've already manufactured this and marketed it and sold it. I guess we'll take that feedback and maybe we'll make a version two, which is what you're doing with your new model for your camera. But if we're still in the post production process or on set and someone's giving me feedback, it really depends on who's giving me that feedback. Is it someone, like, is it the producer, and are they equipped, or are they just the finance guy? Are they equipped to be giving me this creative feedback, or is it the cinematographer who's suggesting, I really think it would lend more credence to the story if we shot it with this type of lighting, or if we use this kind of angle, or if he says, may I make a suggestion, I think it'll be better if we shoot it this way, and here's why. I'll be more open to that type of feedback, but it really depends on who you're getting feedback from. Like if
Got it.
someone's giving you feedback on a camera, and they're not a photographer, well, I guess in your case, you're selling cameras to people who aren't super experienced in
Exactly.
photography. But let's say like you're getting feedback from someone who has no interest in photography.
Yeah.
Um, that feedback's not going to be super useful to you.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
it really depends on who you're talking to, and I really
Exactly.
take that into consideration a lot when I'm getting feedback. Like let's say someone knows nothing about filmmaking or movies, or they're not even interested in film, and they go like, I think you should do this. Well, I'm not going to listen to that person because they don't have a vested interest in what I'm creating. Whereas if it's someone who's on my crew, who I already have vetted or maybe even worked with before, and they're telling me, um, I think we should tweak this, and here's why, I'm going to listen to that a little bit more.
Got it. That's very insightful.
Cool.
Yeah.
Back to my interview of you.
Okay.
Um,
Thanks for
yeah,
going with me on that one.
yeah, for sure. And feel free, to ask more questions. I'm all about it. Just talking about creating things and creating things for an audience. What are some of the major challenges you've encountered in your journey to find an audience for your company and your products?
That's a good question. Um, Finding an audience. Yeah, I remember when I was first testing this idea out, I would just search up, like I would search different keywords that people were searching for, and related keywords, and the ones that I thought were going to be the most searched for weren't typically, weren't necessarily that way. And even just different hashtags, like the hashtag film is not dead is used like over 1 million times or something like that on
Wow.
Instagram. And just looking into the landscape of who actually uses disposable cameras, why are they using them, and honestly, with you, honestly, like I'm still sort of discovering what is there. But like I recently posted about a new camera that we're releasing, and it was sort of an experimental post. It was about I'm just pulling it up now. It was about it was a contest. I did a free camera contest for one of our new camera models, and I'd never done a contest before. I'd seen them done, but it was sort of an experiment. Like I had never done a contest. Like let's try this experiment. And the contest was essentially like, leave a comment tagging 2 friends who'd love this camera for a chance to win a free kit. And the response, like I don't get the most crazy engagement on our Instagram, and this wasn't an ad either, so it was not boosted. But the response was amazing. And I guess I'll read you the creative, which gets into the actual type of person that I have kind of iterated over time is best used for, like, the kind of person that uses one of our cameras
Mm-hmm.
is sort of described in this description. So it's a picture of there's in the post, there's several pictures of the camera, and I'm saying, like, coming soon, Condessa. This is your travel companion, your escape from your phone, you're tethered to the physical world. It's a simple but fun point and shoot 35 millimeter film camera. This is the sister camera to the Voyager, and it comes as a kit with everything you need to get started shooting film. We wanted to create an affordable option for those looking to get started with film. We wanted to make the switch to a point and shoot from a disposable or instant camera a little easier, and a limited stock will soon be available. So, that description right there, that has been most of the feedback that I've gotten from trying out different, at first I was like, oh, it's people that love sustainability. They're the audience that would really, benefit from a camera that's reusable. And when I would run ads targeted at people who are into sustainability, very little engagement, very little, people didn't really care, to be honest. And so I kind of let that one go a little bit, and started to focus more on the travel crowd, and the crowd that wants to go hiking and wants to adventure. And that has been some of the biggest response. And so, like, the response to this post was amazing. Like I had, over 10, I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but over 10 people entered the contest. And like, we don't have so much engagement on Instagram. Like we maybe get one comment every here and there. And 10 different people, most of which people I've never even seen or heard of, like somehow found out about this and commented on there.
Wow. And this
And
is
we don't have
an unpaid post?
an unpaid post, just
That's awesome.
just a post. And like the contest was just like, I just like threw it in there. I was like, well, might as well just try a contest too. And I just threw it in there, and then like got this, there's like 30 comments on here of people just responding, and 10 people entered the contest. And yeah, that was just, I was not expecting that. And I think part of it was the it's a free camera, everyone wants a free camera. But I think the way that I positioned it, and that was, the traveling, the escape from your phone, the sort of simple nature of it, that's all, something that has taken time to really carve out. And I think that is, to answer your question, like that is most more my audience. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still tweaking things and finding it, but that's what I would say the audience is after a lot of different experimentation.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the challenge of actually finding what the audience is what you've
Yeah. And I
encountered.
had all these assumptions, oh, it's
Mm-hmm.
people that want to do sustainability, or I'm trying to think of some of my other assumptions, but I was wrong for some of it, and some of it I was spot on.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of had to throw everything out and just try it all. And I'm sure there's still more segments that I'm not even thinking of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very cool. Um,
Yeah.
and so how did you? I guess how did you come about the travel audience exactly? Like, how did you find them?
It was really just looking around me. Everyone that was any friend that I had that had bought one of my cameras, they were always using it on a trip,
Mm-hmm.
and they always were like, um, it just was listening to my customers. They're all like, "Hey, I'm about to go on this trip. I was wondering if I could, get my camera order expedited because they're about to go on a trip,
Hmm.
and or they're like about to go on a trip and they've never loaded film in before and they needed some help like loading the
Mm-hmm.
film in. It's all like a lot of the times it's people that are about to go on a trip and they want
Hmm.
to document it and they want to, and like I'm doing the same thing. I'm about to go on this trip. I just bought 3 rolls of film and I'm like locked and loaded to go. And so it was really just like at first a lot of friends that were interested, they bought the cameras, and then as I listened to different customers, um, and even there's even people who I didn't know that bought them from ads they saw, and talking with them, they were about to go on a trip, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's really, now that I think about it, it's just listening to my customers and what they're actually doing with their lives,
Mm-hmm.
and most of the time they're using this when they're going on a trip.
Gotcha. Yeah,
and
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 it's
the reason that is because um, it's such a convenient way to shoot film on a trip.
mm-hmm.
All you need is the film. Like you don't have to. People also just order disposables before a trip, and this is just it's a travel companion. It's not something you're going to throw away. It's something you bring with you. And I brought this camera on so many trips with me, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so convenient. It just fits in your pocket. It fits in, like, there's a little case for it, and it's durable. Like you can drop it. It's gonna be fine. It's not the most like you know expensive camera in the world that's going to, like, if you drop it, it's gonna, like, break, be awful. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just it is what it is. It gets the job done, and it's a great travel companion, and it's just very convenient to bring with you anywhere. And I think that's why people love to travel with it, and why that's
Mm-hmm.
been a big segment of mine. So thanks for
Yeah.
asking. I hadn't even like really fully fleshed that out or thought about it, but it makes perfect sense.
No, well, I mean, audience building is a huge. I'm always trying to. All these questions are about, our audience is comprised of independent filmmakers. So, but I always see a lot of comparisons between filmmaking and, marketing or starting a company or doing anything entrepreneurial. I think producing a film outside of the studio system is the one of the most entrepreneurial things you can do. And even with short films, like finding that audience
Hmm.
is so important. Um, if you just create something and you put it out there, like, yeah, your friends and family will support it and they'll like it and all that stuff. But to really find an
Yeah, what,
audience,
and I don't
it's
understand
hard.
that. Like, I
It's
don't.
hard
That's
because,
a total disconnect for me in terms of film. Like, I understand with product development, finding an audience is about putting something out there. And for me, it was just
mhm.
giving this and putting it in people's hands and getting feedback. Is it the
Yeah,
same for film?
what I'm getting at and what you're getting at is,
Mm,
yeah, you need to talk to people. So, like, let's say you make a film, like I'm doing it right now with the Toms. I'm emailing different people saying, like, hey, do you have any, like, ideas of what festivals would be good to submit this to? Like, where do you think the audience would want to see this? Like, what kind of audiences? Like, let's say I made a horror short. That one's easy. Your audience is going to be people who like horror films. You're going to submit to horror um, festivals. You know, comedy festivals, like, your audience, people who like comedies. Like, when you have a genre, it's a lot easier to find an audience for a film. So that's what I'm getting at. Like, you want, but it's not always like black and white like that. Like with my film, The Toms, it's a comedy, but it's also a dystopian and a social commentary. So it's like, I think finding an audience for that is going to be a little bit more interesting. I'm doing my homework to see, like, okay, like, we're trying some more marketing efforts to really find out what the audience is, but really you should be doing that up front. Like you should be finding your audience and talking to people, which is what I'm kind of doing on the back end. But my point is you can't create
Mm,
something in a silo and
mm,
expect people to resonate with it, like, or it to resonate with people.
mm,
You need to have conversations with people, and you need to figure out who those people are, why they're interested in what you're doing, and then create, you know, I'm not saying you should just be like creating things to appease people. You should be solving a need, and whether that's creating a product that solves a need or a piece of
mm.
entertainment that fulfills someone, which is a need, emotionally, then that's an important thing. um, so yeah, audience building and finding an audience, it's tricky, but I think the key to it is just having conversations with as many people as you can and putting your work out there to really see who it resonates with.
That's so, it's so interesting because I look at art and I see filmmaking as an art form, and also product development is a different art form as well. And I just like, there's always this cliche where it's just with art, it's like, oh, just create whatever you want and just express yourself, and that's all that really matters. And it's true too. Like it's really fun to just create something. Like there's a lot of sketches and things that I've made that are just an expression of myself, and it feels really good to make that. And I guess the disconnect for me that I'm not fully understanding is like with film, it seems like that's an expression. You're expressing yourself, and yet if you actually want an audience to see your film, then it's like, do you change your self-expression to fit, like, kind of what you're getting at? Like, do you change your self-expression so that you can appease more people? And like, are there some of the greatest filmmakers, they're just like weird. Like some of the Quentin Tarantino stuff is just weird straight
Mm.
up. And like, was he really like looking for an audience that would like find his that would like, enjoy his stuff, or was he just completely creating based on what he wanted to put into the world, and then people just naturally got pulled towards, wow, this is like,
Mm.
I've never seen anything like this. It's so unique, and like no one's seen a self-expression like that. So that's just like what I think of, and I'm sort of wrestling with in my
Yeah.
own head about both
Well,
those things.
I think it's a mix of both. I mean, with any film in the film industry is unique because it's kind of this mix of industry and art, right? Like at the end of the day, it is a business. So, and as a producer, they're the most business minded people. So they're always going to be thinking of what's the audience, what are the constraints of this. But if we put our creative hats on and say a director, Tarantino made movies based on everything he loved about the movies. He worked in a video store. He had this encyclopedic knowledge of film. Um, and he just created the movies he wants to see, like these badass story driven, creative pieces that he wanted to see, that was influenced by all those great pieces of art that he had seen before.
Mm,
Um, so it is a mix of both. But I think with any art form,
mm-hmm,
and for any art form to be successful, there are going to be creative constraints. Like he
mm,
still follows, even though it's nonlinear a lot of the time, he still follows the narrative structure. He still writes a
mm,
script. There's still
yeah,
this framework he adheres to. It's not just this experimental um,
yeah,
medium, which I'm not a big fan of experimental films because I don't think they don't tell stories a lot of the time.
mm,
It's just like, oh, it's very emotional, or there's like cool imagery or something like that, but
mm,
there's no story being put across. And I think to really resonate with an audience, you need a story. And so that's what
mm,
we focus on at the Film Fund, is story. And
mm,
same with advertising, same with FF Branded. Like, we told your story of why you started Solcosm, and that resonates with people who are interested in getting out there and traveling or getting into nature. So I think the big
mm.
differentiator there is there has to be a story um, for film, and then you can find your audience through that story.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. Yeah.
So just talking about what you know about the Film Fund, I mean, you've been there from pretty early days, back at Lehigh when I was still fleshing it out
Mm-hmm.
in my master's program.
I remember.
What are some of the things you find most interesting about it? And you can talk about FF Branded too, because I look at them in the same light.
I think for the film fund, it's just that you are creating an opportunity for the everyday person, the everyday someone who's never made a short film, or maybe has made a couple but is limited on their budget, you're just giving them another opportunity to create something, and doing that repeatedly. And um, I think that's exciting. And like, there's been so many of my friends who are interested in film, and I always point them towards your
Oh,
website
thank you.
because it's yeah, no, anytime you have an opportunity to get funding and create something for a specific purpose, it's who wouldn't want that? And the amazing thing about it is like you created it from like you've never done that before. You've never created anything like that before, and you just went and did it. And yeah, it took you time. And I always think about like, how did like that first time you did it, and I've asked you this before, like how do you, because to me it's always like, well, how do you get that if the whole idea is you have enough participants to put in money into the pot to make the prize
Mhm.
worthwhile? It's like, that first time you did it like that must have really taken something to that first contest. Like no one had any idea who you
Yeah.
were. You could have just been taking their money for all they
Mhm.
know. Some, it must have really taken something for people to give you their money the first time around without ever seeing this
Mhm.
before, and then for that to happen. And I'm sure like that was an amazing experience the first time it did happen, and you were actually able to create that money, and then actually fund
Mhm.
someone's film.
Yeah, it's super cool and it's super rewarding. And I think it's a mix of both that goes to that trust people had early on. We were featured by No Film School, which was huge. They don't really feature us anymore, which I'm pretty sad about, to be honest with you. If you're listening, No Film School, I love you guys. Please respond to my emails. I don't know what happened. We had such a good thing going there, but they used to feature us for every season. They would put these funding posts up. They'd be like, oh, like upcoming grants and contests for film funding for the fall 2020 or whatever year it was. So that was part of it. We got featured by them early on, and that goes back to me having conversations with people. Like I literally, there were digital conversations, but I DM'd all of their writers on Twitter. And I was like, hey, I created this new film funding platform. I'd love to for you to check it out, and I'd love to get some feedback on it. And one of them replied, and they're like, oh, this seems pretty cool. Send me more details. Like, here's my email address. And so that started that. We had some industry recognition. Like, No Film School is pretty well known in the indie film world. And then the other thing is, I think it was just a really it resonated with a lot of people. Talking about finding your audience from a company point of view and a product point of view, um, and technically the film funds a service, but it just really resonated. It was like it's really hard to find funding for a short film. Yeah, the film fund's not perfect. Like you can't just sign up and get funding. It's still a contest at the end of the day. Um, but it just made the barriers to entry a lot less. And I put my personal story up there. I was like, hey, I found it really difficult to find funding for my own film projects. I've submitted to grants. I've submitted to screenwriting contests. It takes forever. It's expensive. I wanted to create something a little bit simpler, a little bit more straightforward, less expensive, less time consuming. And I think that resonated with people. So I think it was a combination of things. I think it was the fact I had something that solved a need that people resonated with the
Yeah,
story. And we also got featured by some industry publications, and that just kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah,
slingshotted
like
you.
we got featured by No Film School, and then we got featured by AT&T, and then we got featured by Sundance, and we got featured by Studio Binder, and like
Wow.
all these industry publications. I was like, holy shit! Now we actually have something people recognize in the industry. Um,
And that was all out of the first
no,
contest.
so the first contest was just No Film School, and then I want to say maybe the second
Gotcha.
second contest or third contest, AT&T. Um, they either reached out to us or I just found they linked to us. And I had another conversation with, and I should be doing more of this, connecting with film commissions. But I met with the commissioner of the Greater Philadelphia Film Office, Sharon Pinkerton. She's been on the show as well. She listed us under funding resources, and now I'm talking with women in film who are film and video who are based in DC. They're listing us under their funding resources. So it's all about having conversations and just
Mm.
figuring out what resonates with people and putting it in the right spot. But yeah, I mean, early on, it was I think people just they saw that it solved a need and it was something new, and they resonated with the story I put out there.
Mm. Wow.
Isaac, I got one more question for you. What
Hit me.
what is next for you in the next year or so?
Yeah. I mean, you see it right now. I'm literally packing up and moving. Um, you know, I think big picture, it looks like um, just more freedom, more freedom. I am transitioning lifestyle and career to be able to have a little bit more balance in my life. And what that looks like is traveling more, seeing the world more. I'm still in my 20s, and I don't I just this year I'm not waiting anymore to travel and to see the world. It's just not I'm not waiting for the rest of my life till I retire, till I'm financially free to be able to have these experiences. I'm young and I'm healthy, so I'm going to go
Yeah.
now, and I'm going to figure out how to make it all work financially, how to make it work, in every possible way. Um, and part of that is really just some of the work that I've done with myself over the last year. Last I've shared a little bit with you, but last summer I did this transformative 3-day course that opened up so much for me, and is really the reason that I have been able to take a step back and look, I don't want to be you know working a full-time job in a factory for the rest of my
Mm-hmm.
20s or the rest of my life. And so um, I'm taking a step back from being career focused, and I'm just gonna spend some time traveling and seeing the world, especially as it's opening up more now as COVID is just sort of being accepted. And yeah, it's just like having experiences, man. And I'm transitioning to a new career, to spend more of my time being a web developer, to sort of pay the bills and learn a new skill. And it's been a lot of fun to be learning that. And with Solcosm, it's just really continuing to give people this experience. I can't say too much, but I'm in talks with a distributor,
Oh, no way.
a website. Some friends of mine run that gets a lot of traffic, and they are interested in stocking my camera.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
I'm looking at different ways. How best can I use what I've created here? Is it direct to customer? Is it through other companies
Mm-hmm.
and people who have bigger
There's no
networks?
reason you can't do both.
But exactly, and that's sort of where I'm headed. But I want to continue. I want to continue people giving people this experience and bringing this to the world. And I'm also noticing it's becoming a little bit saturated. There's a lot of, since I started this, when I first started this, there was no new film cameras like at all. Like there were just no new point and shoot film cameras, just didn't exist. And then within the last year, it's
Yeah.
exploded, and there's so many new ones that are popping up left and right. And so that is something that's there, is the space is getting saturated. So I'll have to look at how to really differentiate my
But what I think
experience.
and
And
what you are differentiating yourself with is that experience, is that story. Because yeah, you can
exactly,
walk into Urban Outfitters and see some disposable, or excuse me, some reusable point and shoots on the shelf, whether it's lomography or whatever. But you have something unique. You have the story, you have the experience, and I think you're going after a different audience too. You're interested in that travel audience. You're interested in those people who are more interested
exactly,
in discovering things. Um, so yeah, I think as long as you differentiate yourself with that experience and with that story, and that sense of creativity and discovery and the whole experience, I think you'll be just fine. But Isaac, I want to
thanks,
thank you
man.
so much for coming, taking the time to speak with us today. Do you have social media where we can check
I
you out?
do. You can check out at underscore cosm. That's SOL underscore COSM on Instagram. And you can find my personal Instagram at rep underscore Clarence, CLARENCE. And we can
Yeah,
connect.
we don't need to. We don't have the time to go into where that Rep Clarence name came from. But
That's another
if you're,
podcast.
yeah, we'll have Isaac on again to maybe talk about that. Thank you so much. I want to thank
Yeah.
everyone for listening, tuning into the podcast. I want to remind you that the fall narrative and documentary contests are opening soon. So check out the filmfund.co to submit your entry. And I also want to remind you to check us out on social media at the Film Fund on Instagram, facebook.com/filmfundco, at Simply Film Fund on Twitter, and the Film Fund on LinkedIn if you want to get your corporate networking on. And yeah, check out the website, thefilmfund.co, for the most for the most up to date information. I've been talking. This is the second podcast recording we're doing today. Um, so excuse me, but check out our blog.
And you're
Thank
crushing
you,
it.
thank you. I was told on a Zoom call the other day I should have a podcast, and I have a very good voice for it. So we'll take that as you will. I don't know how everyone else feels about that, but check out our blog.thefilmfund.co, filmmaking and producing tips. Check out our newsletter and stay up to date on what's happening in the Film Fund. We also have an ebook. Check out our resources page for that, thefilmfund.co/resources, the ultimate guide to pre-production. If you have no idea what to do in the filmmaking process and you're like Isaac and you need somewhere to get started, check out how to budget, how to schedule, um, how to put a crew together, all that fun stuff. All right, that's it. I'm done plugging everything. I want to thank everyone again for listening. Tune in every other Friday for new episodes. Isaac, is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Thank you, Tom. I have not done many podcasts in my day, and I've listened to a lot of them, so it's cool to be on one. And it's so cool that you are doing this, and it's a pleasure to be introduced to your community that you've cultivated. And thank you for listening, everyone out there.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Isaac, I'll talk to you soon. Have a great time in Vietnam. Talk to everyone later.
Thank you. Bye bye.